So before I realized we had no audio, I was giving a beautiful speech. It can't be recreated, unfortunately. So those
You
words,
hadn't started giving the beautiful speech.
It was like Tolkien. It was beautiful. It would have lived on in the hearts of men.
You recited a poem. Is that what you're saying?
Something like that.
Okay.
So let me start from the top. I can't believe we're here for 10 years of China Uncensored, and we still don't really know how technology works, but that has never once stopped us.
It never has.
Shelley, you look amazing.
Wait. Okay. Is there sound now?
There's sound.
There is sound.
I heard it.
Yeah, there is sound.
Okay.
Matt, you also look good. Careful of the trolls who are telling us there's no sound.
Yeah.
Matt, you look great. And yeah, again, I was getting into this before I realized we had no sound, but this is very emotional for me. Like when I started China Uncensored, it was just me toiling away, and what?
Sorry, the chat is so delayed that I'm like, is
That's
there
okay.
sound?
Yeah,
Okay.
the chat's delayed by about 10 seconds.
Yeah. But yeah, we could not have made it to this point without the help of so many people. Every one of you who have watched, like I've been getting so many messages from people who've been watching it for 10 years. You know, I can't name everyone, and like, you know, there's some people were like helping us in Hong Kong, and I definitely don't want to say their names on air, but just the amount of support over the years has been so incredible. And most of all, I could not have done this without you, Matt and Shelley. You two, you're like brothers to me, especially you, Shelley.
Yeah, we're just like sworn brothers, like in Romance of the Three Kingdoms.
Yes, or Outlaws of the Marsh. All men are brothers.
Yeah.
Yep, including me.
Yeah, I also have to give a big thank you to my parents who, you know, 10 years ago when I was, you know, a broke young man with a massive student loan debt, and I said, hey, I told them, hey, you know what I'm going to do? There's this thing called YouTube. I'm going to do a show on there about China and make no money.
Well, you'd already left and gotten a master's in what, music composition?
Yes.
So they already knew that you were going to make no money.
Yes, but I was going to make no money doing something different.
Okay.
So they were very supportive. They're watching right now, as long as they understand technology better than me. So thank you.
It figures that we started off with having no audio despite having seriously tested this right before we went live.
That is right.
Yeah, it happens. Well, I take responsibility for that, so sorry, guys.
Yeah, you're fired. 10 years is enough. Get out.
Actually, Matt and I haven't been working on this for 10 years.
That's right.
But before we jump into that, I do want to thank, because it's not just the three of us that do this show. There's actually, we do have a staff of people. Some of them are part-time. Some
a very
of them
small
are full-time.
staff.
Yeah, so I want to thank Holly, who's a writer and running our studio. I want to thank Seamus and Anderson, who are our video editors. I want to thank Paul and Nat and Elisa, who write for us, especially for America Uncovered. And it would be, I'm probably leaving out a bunch of people. Martinez, who does the website. We have lots of people who do different aspects of this. And it's impossible to do what we do without actually having people. And so one of the things that you, our viewers, have been able to help us do is expand, because when you contribute through Patreon or locals, it actually gives us the ability to bring in these people and build this team so we can actually we do 4 episodes of the show a week, plus the podcast, plus 4 episodes of America Uncovered. So it's, thank you. Thank you for that.
This is why we have audio, for beautiful things like that.
Wasn't quite Tolkien.
No.
We could have just mimed the whole thing, I feel.
Hey, why don't we start a new show where we just mime stuff?
Mimes Unspoken.
That's pretty good. That was quick.
That's what the world needs, more miming.
That's what the world... Well, the world does not have an abundance of miming. Oh no, how did that wall get up around Matt? Quick, Shelley, save him. Use that knife. Break it in. That's what this show could be, Mimes Unspoken. Yeah.
All right, maybe not.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're kind of leading this. I know we have like comments and questions to go through. We have so much history we could talk about.
Chris, do you ever wish you could go back to the simpler days of just you editing, writing,
Oh my
everything
gosh.
yourself.
Yeah,
Video
I
editing,
miss-
everything.
I really miss 18-hour days.
Yeah.
The first China Uncensored episode was like 1.5 minutes long.
Is that really all it was?
It was
They were so much shorter.
Oh my gosh, it was like 18-hour days making them, and they were only a minute long.
well,
They were
it was like
typically under 3 minutes.
yeah, that it was short.
Wow, wow. Yes, thank you to the video editor, to Seamus and Anderson, because I am so glad I don't have to video edit this show anymore.
Yeah.
What were you thinking this was going to go 10 years ago? I'm just curious.
That's a really interesting question, because back then, you know, I started the show because people really weren't talking much about China. At the time, people were thinking Xi Jinping could be like, you know, the Gorbachev reformer.
Yeah, this is before Xi Jinping spoke publicly like 1 million times about how much he hated Gorbachev.
Yeah, I guess.
Right. But also like there was no occupation, let alone militarization of the South China Sea
No.
in 2012. Let's see.
I mean, it was starting, but it wasn't.
right.
They hadn't really built the
But there
islands yet.
wasn't the militarization had not started.
No.
And it wasn't until 2015 that Xi Jinping promised to not militarize.
They were already militarizing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm just saying. But also, like 2012, I mean, what was happening? It was only 4 years after the OG Olympics, which were a huge success for China's propaganda apparatus. It was still the heyday of going to China to do business. Uyghurs
People still
didn't
talk
exist.
about that as fondly as like, oh, those were the good times.
Those are good days of China. Oh, I remember what I was thinking when I started the show. I started it in October 2012. I was thinking, well, I won't be making the show that long, since in like 2 months it's going to be the Mayan end of the world.
Oh, that's where you were going. Okay.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to go with the CCP is going to collapse because of all this weird stuff going on with Boishila, and there's going to be
yeah,
a
the
coup
whole Boishila
and
thing.
like all this. Yeah.
No, Mayan end of the world. I was wrong about that one.
You're like, if it doesn't work out, I only have to do it for 2 months.
Now here I am. The Mayans, this was all a trick played on me by the Mayans. 10 years.
They were playing the long game.
They were. God, 10 years.
So, you guys want some cake?
Oh yeah, we
'Cause
have this
I
lovely
really
cake.
want cake.
Does Chris have to blow out the candles? Is that
Well, one of us is going to have to, and then we're going to cut it.
No, how about all three at the same time?
maximum germs?
Maximum germ. 3, 2, 1.
All right.
I was
There we
going to
go.
do a fake blowing out the candles, and then I realized that we might not have enough wind power to actually blow them out.
It's symbolic of the show. Individually, none of us can really do this. It needs all of us together with you watching.
That's right.
Because without you watching, what's the point, really?
Yeah. We'd just be screaming into the wind.
Oh, we
Yeah.
do a lot of that already.
I mean, it feels like that sometimes.
I mean, it is really incredible that, you know, definitely I have complained about YouTube for a lot of things, but without this platform, like, we would not have been able to reach so many people about
1.8
China.
million people. Maybe.
Yeah, we've crossed 1.8 million subscribers. Sooner or later, we'll be bigger than PewDiePie. I know it.
How many? Is he like 100 million or something? Am
I don't know. I don't know. Well, that's why we have the new.
Like a 9-year-old who opens toys has like 20 times the subscribers we do.
What?
Ryan's World.
I haven't heard of this.
Yeah, it's he's like the highest earner on YouTube.
What are people doing on YouTube? What are we doing on YouTube? Talking about China?
It does
Crazy.
seem like actually a weird place to do it in some ways, because if we had just started a gaming channel, we would have been.
Hey, we can do the soft launch for our new gaming channel, Gamers Unbeaten.
All right.
Ooh, very
Pass
nice.
that down.
Whoa, there's this.
Jiggly.
I got the I think it's cherry jam in the middle because I thought that would look awesome.
It definitely looks
does.
red.
Can you pass me a fork, please? Yeah, I remember
This is our.
when I put up like the first episode of China Uncensored, and I was like, oh my gosh, 100 people saw this. That's incredible.
Actually pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was quite happy about that. But definitely looking back, we've grown a lot since then.
I remember when we went to Hong Kong in 2014, we had 66,000 subscribers. So anything that was in like the tens of thousands was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. Well, what should we do besides enjoy this cake?
I'm gonna eat cake.
Well, we have stories to tell. You guys have to talk about how you joined on. We have our South China Sea trip to talk about, to reminisce on. All of Hong Kong. I mean, that was one of the most powerful things I think we've experienced on this show. And then we've got lots of questions and comments that we gotta sort through. So what do you think? What should we do?
What do you guys want us to do? And then we have to wait 10
This
seconds.
isn't a democracy. I'm the supreme leader for life.
Do you want to read some super chat?
I just got a strawberry seed in between my teeth. You're
It's gonna
sabotaging
be
that.
here for the rest of the show.
What was it? It may be a boring birthday party, but
Ross Kleinman gave us $20.
hey.
Thank you, Ross.
Thanks a lot.
And a really interesting hippo victory sticker,
Oh, nice,
which I'm going to
nice.
show Chris so he can
Called
appreciate.
Hipstery.
Shelley,
Nope.
share the story about how you started on China Uncensored. What were you thinking when I approached you?
You actually didn't approach me. It was our friend Karen.
That's right.
Yes.
There was a Shelley before the
There was a Shelley before Shelley. Our mutual friend Karen was working on China Uncensored with you, and then Karen kind of asked me if I could help copy edit the script. So it was the first thing. She was like, hey, and then slowly she was like, I think you'd be really more into this than me. Like, this seems like really up your alley.
She couldn't put up with me the way you can.
And then, so once I started really working on some of the scripts, Karen did a slow fade back into the bushes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, she did.
And then I suddenly
Thanks, Karen.
found myself doing this more, and I was like, how did this happen actually? Yeah. So Karen wrote me in originally.
That's right.
But it was also around the same time that. It was. I actually don't remember that much because my mom died around that same time. So that.
Yeah.
That year is kind of a blank bad year for me in general. So sorry to bring it down.
Yeah, sorry. I guess that's another 10-year anniversary.
Hey, let's talk about something else.
Not for
Stop
another-
talking, Shelley. Matt. Matt, remember when you started working for us and how fun that was?
Why,
Tell us
I
a fun
sure
story.
do, Chris. Let me tell you a story, and you can take the camera off Shelley now.
I roped you in, Matt.
Yes, you did. So it was 2014, so 8 years ago, and the Hong Kong protests had just started, the first round,
The umbrella movement.
umbrella movement. And I had been a television field producer, and so Shelley was like, hey, we're going to Hong Kong to cover the protests, and we need a field producer. And I was like, that sounds fun.
Matt is always the first one who wants to run into the most dangerous situations when
Yeah.
possible.
Because you get the best footage that way. So it was fun, and I had an absolute blast in
It
Hong
was
Kong.
actually our friend Alan, which if you watch the YouTube Generation Tech channel,
Alan
it's
Schiff.
Alan from
That's
Generation
another person
Tech.
we have to. Yeah.
Yeah.
He was actually the one who called Chris and me in the middle of the umbrella movement protest and was like, you guys should go to Hong Kong. And we were kind of like, huh.
We could. It was like us realizing we could do more with the show than we were doing, or we could have a bigger impact.
Yeah, for 2 years by that point, it was just you in a studio. We never tried to go anywhere.
Yeah. And there was no money.
I had another day job, so Chris and I would just literally email Word document scripts to each other. And then you would record yourself, you would video edit everything. So at that point, to have Alan be like, hey, you guys could go to Hong Kong, we were like, huh. But I think it was because Alan also wanted to go to Hong Kong.
Yeah.
So
He's also a very adventurous spirit.
So he came as our cameraman, and I remember, all of us buying the tickets to go to Hong Kong out of our own money and
That was
renting an
expensive.
Airbnb in Mongkok.
Yeah, that was Mongkok's interesting.
It just had those bunk beds.
Look, you
Yeah.
could totally sleep 10 people in that place with
That's
two
what it was
bedrooms.
advertised as.
Yeah.
Oh man, now I'm remembering the horrible canned coffee we lived off of. It didn't keep us awake, but just made us sick. But
I do have a photo of you from that 2014 trip where you're sitting on a couch with like a coffee cup in your hand and you are asleep.
Sounds about right.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that was wild because, well, at the time it seemed wild, but, later when we went back in 2019, that really got
Yeah.
crazy. But yeah, in like the riots in Mongkok. But in Admiralty, that was just so amazing to see what the students there had set up and how peaceful and nice it was. Although we later learned it was probably not the most strategic way to protest, but it had such a great spirit.
Kind of watching the Hong Kong people discover that they had some kind of like civic community spirit.
Yeah.
Yeah, that Hong Kong was a place that like people cared about where they lived very passionately, and they could, even though it didn't last, like it was like 80 days or something like that.
Something like that.
It was kind of a visual representation for people about like they could see that everybody who went there. And I remember interviewing so many people who were just saying like they were there, even in Mongkok, which was a bit more rough, like they were there to protect the students, protect the kids, and it was really moving to talk to them. And just to get that sense of, and I think that's when we all fell in love with Hong Kong because the people were just amazing. Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, like you grow up reading about, early American history and the founding fathers and the fight for freedom, and it's all very, kind of abstract and far away. But like in Hong Kong, like we saw people fighting for freedom. It was so moving to actually see that.
And that was also the first time we had met anybody who had watched the show.
That's right, because we never left like our little green screen studio before then.
The first night we landed, when you fly to Hong Kong, you always land at like 6 in the morning on the direct flight. So we landed, got through customs, and then like that night, I think it was Halloween actually, right?
It was, yeah, it was
And
Halloween. There was a Halloween parade.
So we
Amidst all of that.
we decided to go out to like take a look at both of the protest sites. We went to Mongkok first, and just like even stepping into the protest site, like people immediately recognized you. I have a photo of the first person to recognize you. It was just this young girl. She probably was in her like early 20s.
Yeah,
she was wearing a face mask.
Which meant something different back then.
And then she was just like she recognized you and she thanked you for doing the show. And I have a photo of the two of you just like standing there and smiling at each other.
Wow. Which we can no longer make public in any way for her safety. But
yeah, well, at least she was wearing a mask. But the same night people came up and told us that like their college professor was showing China Uncensored videos to their class, and just it was the beginning of just an amazing. Our first fan meetup was in Hong Kong.
That's right, at Mama Dung's
Dumpling House.
Dumpling House. That was good. They were good dumplings. If they're ever
somewhere in Hong Kong, there is a dumpling place where Chris has signed the wall.
That's right. I hope it's still there. But yeah, and yeah, a lot of that trip was only possible because of Matt being able to organize things that, if it was just you and me, Shelley,
we
would have struggled. We would have struggled a lot.
Yeah. Well, I think since we're not, this is not just Hong Kong Uncensored. I think we should talk about some of the other trips that we've done.
Oh, like the other time you thrust us into danger in the South China Sea?
Yeah, I was like, which other time? Because there was that one and then also the other Hong Kong. But in 2016, we did something really stupid.
I look back on that and I'm like, we really could have died.
So, yeah, so there had just been this conflict between the Philippines and China over the Scarborough Shoal. And the shoal is like an island that is above water during low tide and below water during high tide.
So it's not an island.
So it's not an island, right? It's like kind of almost like that. But the reason it's important is because due to the coral reef structure, it's really like a prime spot for fishing. And it's about a day's journey by fishing boat from the Philippines and maybe 3 times the distance from mainland China. Anyway, they both claim it. I found someone who put me in touch with the Philippine Inquirer, which is the big newspaper in the Philippines, or one of them. And then we jointly hired a Filipino fishing boat called the Buboy. And it was just like, one of those like catamarans with the...
It wasn't really a catamaran.
Not a catamaran. It basically...
It had outriggers.
Outriggers. That was the word I was looking for.
Well, I remember when you were telling me, like, oh, you found this boat and we're going to go on a boat. I'm thinking of a boat.
Like, you think of like a New England fishing boat or something.
Yeah,
right?
I was thinking
There's going to be a
like
cabin.
the boat in Jaws.
There's going to be like an indoors area.
To be fair, that is also what I had thought.
Yeah.
But that's not what happened.
No.
And if you watch that episode, just search our channel for Scarborough Shoal. Anyway, so they promised us like, first it was going to be like 8 hours. And then I clarified and like, 8 hours each way.
On the boat.
On the boat. And I was like, okay, that's a really long day, but okay. What actually happened is it was the full moon.
It was a supermoon.
Supermoon.
By the time we went, they had told us it was going to be more than 8 hours. Like we were expecting.
I think it was like up to 19.
Like each way.
Well,
Yeah.
whatever it was, it ended up being about 25 hours out. And then we get to the shoal, and I remember the shoal is shaped like a horseshoe, and at the mouth of that, there were a whole bunch of big Chinese vessels. Some of them were probably Coast Guard, some of them might have been maritime militia, but they were these big, like real boats, like the kind I was hoping we would take.
Dwarfed our thing.
But they were like, they were scary big. And then we get there in our like tiny little Filipino fishing boat.
We can't even describe what this looks like because there's just no reference for it. It was like a giant canoe.
I mean, we were
without
sleeping
riggers.
exposed to the elements when it was like raining and there was a supermoon and the waves were
Like coming
like
over
20
the
feet
side.
tall.
But like besides us on this boat, there were like 11 fishermen.
Yeah,
And
a
then
couple
three
guys from the Philippine Inquirer.
So it held a lot of people, but it was a very tiny boat. Like
It was.
I wish we could put a photo up. But
And I remember as we were getting closer to the shoal and we started seeing the Chinese Coast Guard in the distance, the Filipino fishermen were getting a little freaked out by like Matt's beautiful blonde hair. And we're like, all right, let's cover him up. So
So I
like,
put
in case-
like a wrap around my head.
yeah, so that you wouldn't look so obviously white, but I don't think that really worked.
I was afraid, like, part of the calculation is like, what happens if the Chinese Coast Guard boards our ship? And then, like, what do we do? Like, what is our response?
Hello, comrade. Thank you for being out here patrolling.
We did we did buy one of those giant packs of Marlboros.
Yeah.
And some
booze.
Those worked really well the last time I was in mainland China. Like, people, you give them American cigarettes and they were so thrilled. This was a long time ago, though, so I don't know if they still want them.
Well, I mean, part of the reason we did that because we had gone right in the middle of this like
It was when
brief.
Duterte just came to power, right?
Yeah, like there was this brief moment of the CCP was like backing off so that they could kind of try to make nice with Duterte. So there were stories about Chinese Coast Guard vessels and Filipino fishing boats like sharing a meal together or something like that. And so we're like, all right, well, if we meet them, we could give them some stuff. Maybe it'll make it better because we just didn't know what was going to happen. I mean, the boat we were on had been rammed by the Coast Guard,
Yeah, like a year prior.
which we hadn't found out until we were on the boat.
It's just a constant influx of revelations as our...
Including, there's no bathroom on this boat.
Ah, Shelley, the ocean is your bathroom.
You just stand over the side, Shelley.
Yeah.
Well, actually, we had asked whether there was a bathroom because they had asked if we had any women who were coming. And so we were like, is that okay to have a woman? Is there a bathroom? And they were like, no, yeah, there's a bathroom. The bathroom was like a 2.5 foot wide like square plank in the front of the boat that they could lift up, and you would have to straddle that and go directly into the bottom of the boat.
It's great.
Yeah.
Such memories. Let me tell you, on rough waters, it's hard to hold on to the ship and, do your business.
Okay.
Is that wow, you were
When
whoa.
it's
So
Supermoon,
this is
big
like
waves.
the miming has started now. Is that
miming
what-
has started.
Yeah. Well,
Miming has started.
So here's what happened. So we get to the shoal, and then we see all the Chinese maritime militia and Coast Guard boats, and we're freaked out. The captain is freaked out. The rest of the crew are like, "This is a bad idea. We can't go into the shoal." And so, but I didn't like. We didn't come all the way out there
To
spend
not go
25
to the
hours to not
shoal.
go. So we had them take us around sort of to the side. And it's a pretty big thing. So I feel like at that point we were like a mile away from the Chinese boats. And then they took us in a little,
A few propeller
like a
boats.
propeller boat.
We somehow got off our very small boat onto even smaller boats.
The boats that we got onto with the outboard motors were so small they could fit only 2 people and not comfortably. So it was one of the fishermen who was driving it, and then one of us, or maybe 2 of us.
No, I think it was more than 2.
Oh, right, because we had one of them with the camera. But we took them out, and then we kind of landed on the shoal. But by landed, it's like the bottom when you
We
we
were
stood, it
chest
was like,
deep in
yeah,
water.
It was chest deep, and
Except for Shelley, she was
there was
drowning.
like coral sticking out.
I should have learned to swim.
Yeah. So it was beautiful though. The water, the fish.
The
Felt
water was
beautiful.
warm. I
It
have
was
to
just
say,
nice.
the water was warm.
Honestly, like it was just the most beautiful beach experience I've had.
I'm not sure I would call it a beach since there was no land.
But what is often forgotten by the international community is that while we were there, I planted the China Uncensored flag on the shoal, declaring it my territory.
Yeah.
So when I say I'm a supreme leader, it's not an exaggeration.
Yeah, that scene from our intro where Chris is planting a flag, that is in the South China Sea.
Check that episode out. We put a lot of work into it.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
We really could have died for that episode.
Yeah.
We don't even have like 100,000 views on that, do we?
I don't know where it is now. So yes, please, if you have not watched the show back since 2016, watch that episode. Make it worth it.
It was wonderful and stupid, and we survived it. And then, of course, coming back, it also took us like
We
more than a
were
day.
out on like 49 hours.
It was
54.
54 hours.
Yeah.
I remember that very excruciating.
That's a lot of time out on the open ocean on a tiny boat. And we barely ate anything while we were on there because we were all getting a little seasick. Though
But also because nobody wanted to use the bathroom.
That's also true. There was one great meal though where the fishermen like cooked us fresh fish from the ocean. It was really incredible.
We were on our way back, and then the captain was like, I was like, how soon are we going to be back? He's like, oh, we'll be back like tonight. But actually, would you mind if we just stay out another day to go fishing?
Which we could not have done because we were also doing other things in the Philippines, and then we were going to Taiwan
our fan meetup
and
and-
Hong Kong.
Yes.
Here.
Yeah.
That was a busy trip.
It was. Yeah,
It was our pivot to Asia tour.
It was a Pivot to Asia tour, yeah.
we had scheduled it so tightly that we had to turn them down.
Also,
But also, I had to use the bathroom. But
Also, this trip was, we got on the plane the night of the 2016 presidential election.
Oh yeah, just at the moment where like the New York Times was starting to be like,
That
Trump
like
might win.
their little, what do you call that?
Speedometer.
Not a speedometer, but it was starting to
Electometer.
go in the other direction. And
Yeah.
I remember being like, we have to get on the plane now. We are not going to know what happens.
Yeah, it was so weird, like the atmosphere on that plane ride as everyone was kind of like, I wonder what's happening back in America right now. And then, of course, throughout the trip, like we were always getting asked about the U.S. election, but
I remember when we were in Hong Kong or Macau, Trump took a call from Tsai Ing-wen. Mm-hmm. And we had to film an episode about it with you, like standing.
it was that night on the streets in Kowloon.
Yeah. Like we just were like, all right, we've got to have. We had the makeshift teleprompter, and you were just doing
Yeah.
this episode because
Oh,
we're like, this
yeah.
is so big, we have to cover it, even though we are literally filming a bunch of different things.
It was also
were
like
not so
11
loud.
at night.
yeah.
And we had just gotten back from Macau, which was its own crazy
Adventure.
thing. We
Oh, I do just want to add one other thing to the little Scarborough Shoal trip. I made sure not to tell my parents about that until I came back because I knew it would stress you guys out. I know you're watching. Sorry about that.
Well, they know now.
They know now. I think I sent them a postcard or something.
Well, do you think that was the most dangerous thing we've done, or going to Hong Kong in 2019?
I feel like that was more dangerous because it's the open ocean. People disappear.
I don't
Like,
know.
I
I feel like Hong Kong in October 2019 was more dangerous because the police had gotten a lot more aggressive.
I think
they
that was
were
the
firing
first time
rubber
somebody
bullets.
got shot.
Because remember that reporter
There was
had
somebody who was
lost
shot.
her eye
Yeah.
because of the rubber bullet.
Yeah, but
And-
somebody also got shot by a real bullet on that day. On
That's
that,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right,
But
yeah.
not a journalist, but
No,
one of the protesters.
yeah.
Yeah. You know, when I started China Uncensored 10 years ago, I never imagined I would get to know what pepper spray and tear gas feels like.
That's true. Yeah, I don't. Hong Kong police had not tear gassed a single person back in 2012.
Yeah. Yeah, tear gas, it feels like a horrible sunburn constantly. Oh yeah, that first night when we were getting tear gassed, and like we had our masks on, but I didn't realize that if you have a beard, it interferes with the seal. So I like that whole night I was like coughing. I'm like, what's wrong with me? Why is this?
Matt and I were okay.
Yeah, I'm like, am I just sissy?
Yes.
What's up? And then I had to shave the beard. Fortunately,
It worked though.
it grew back.
I do have to say that you never forget the first moment a tear gas canister just explodes at your feet because the adrenaline, like it's just like yeah, I
Yeah,
wasn't
it's loud.
expecting, like, because the first time that happened to us, we were in the middle of Causeway Bay, which is like the big shopping district. So it's like you're in the middle of Fifth Avenue. There are no protesters around, and they're just a bunch of police and a bunch of journalists, and the police just start shooting tear gas for no apparent reason.
Like right by our faces.
I went in close because I wanted to get footage of it, obviously, which was great. The footage, I mean, but I was turning my camera, and then suddenly, I was like, "Huh, everything in the lens is white. That's not right." And I look like not through the viewfinder, and I'm like, "Oh, I'm in a cloud of tear gas." It was scary.
There were parts of that that really were like being in a movie. Like I remember you got separated from us and we were like just like following the police through this kind of like small alley, and there was just fires and there was tear gas everywhere. You couldn't see. It was like so weird. It was like a movie.
It did feel like being in some kind of post-apocalyptic wasteland.
Yeah.
or like
really.
Detroit,
I've
Yeah.
never actually been to Detroit. I hope it's better than.
like a RoboCop version of Detroit.
Okay.
Oh, and then on top of all of that, while we're doing this in Hong Kong, that's when YouTube was really like any content about Hong Kong gets demonetized and age restricted.
Yeah.
So that was like
Yeah, we had to complain a lot.
We had to complain. One of the things about the demonetization is a lot of those videos, some of them have been remonetized, but they demonetize it for like the first 2 days, which is when almost all the views and advertising revenue would have happened.
Well, I mean,
so
also it
then
like
we just don't get
limits
it back.
the number of views that it gets, and like
Right.
we are in Hong Kong getting tear gassed, so people can see what's happening in Hong Kong, and YouTube is
It's like, oh, you shouldn't, we don't want to show this. We want to show children opening toys.
they weren't doing that to CNN's Hong Kong coverage.
No.
I bet.
So yeah, it was difficult, and we also did some lives from Hong Kong.
That was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I really love Hong Kong. I really wish
I miss Hong Kong.
we could go back without getting instantly arrested for violating the Hong Kong national security law.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that we would get arrested. We would either get turned back at the border, which always felt like a possibility, especially in 2019 when like more and more people we knew started getting just like not let into Hong Kong anymore.
Yeah.
But we always managed to slide under the radar. But even if we somehow got in, like we'd be putting people in danger, by even trying to interview them. It's just that it's gotten that bad.
Yeah. But speaking of sliding under the radar, one of the best moments in the 10 years of China Uncensored speaking of under the radar.
Can you hold it up and we can zoom in?
Oh,
at least
that's
on-
right.
on
We
your
got,
shot.
hey, look at this. We got mentioned in state-run China Daily. Not the Global Times. I wish there was Global Times, but you take what you can get.
What year was this? 2020. Oh,
2020. Oh, in February, before real Corona time. Yeah, we are meant. China Uncensored gets mentioned along with like the New York Times as just disgraceful anti-China garbage.
Because we were saying that there was a pandemic happening.
Were we saying then? But I don't. Yeah, that was just. It was such a nice moment.
It's beautiful.
So, I mean, yeah. So we're maybe not entirely under the radar.
You know what else we have is actually the this.
Oh yeah.
This is Chris.
This was the helmet I wore for the Umbrella Movement, the 2014 trip to Hong Kong. Yeah, we
Feels woefully inadequate now.
Yeah, well, definitely
You're
would have
wearing
been
a party hat.
Oh yeah. Hey, 10 years top China content. Look at this.
like I like
idiot.
how we just like
Press.
taped press
TV.
and like just the logo.
I mean, yeah, Hong Kong. We care a lot about Hong Kong. It's yeah. We hope it gets better. But for Hong Kong to get better, it's going to have to, the Chinese Communist Party is going to have to fall. That's what it is at the end of the day, the Chinese Communist Party, which, just a little heads up, this Saturday, we have a massive general hostility recap episode where we go through the entire history of the political factional infighting between Xi Jinping and
An
Jiang Zemin.
abbreviated version. We had to leave some of the juiciest stuff out.
That's true. Like the cross-dressing security guy for Bo Xilai who fled to a U.S. consulate. It's juicy stuff.
I really feel like we should do a specific episode just on how nuts Bo Xilai and that, oh my gosh, his
Wang
second...
Lijun.
Wang Lijun, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, we should do one just on them.
It was crazy.
Because they were so crazy.
Yeah.
Well, in the meantime, you know what you, our viewers, can do is buy our all-new and limited time only General Hostility T-shirt.
It's the people's favorite soap opera. Communist soap opera. I'm forgetting our own line.
Yeah, so well, we can't put it on screen because we haven't figured. If we can't figure out audio, we can't figure that part out yet. But it's on our website, ChinaUncensored.tv. And just click on
/merchandise.
Yeah, or you can just click on the merchandise button. Maybe someone who's watching this can actually paste it in the chat there.
Yeah.
And then you can buy one of the shirts. I don't know how long we'll have them up, but I know that a lot of people were asking for something, so we just thought
We decided to celebrate the Communist Party's 20th Party Congress with a T-shirt. Since this is like the season finale of General Hostility, we'll have to see if Xi Jinping manages
to get renewed for season 3.
Yeah,
Fingers crossed.
yeah.
So each season is 5 years.
It feels like that.
Well, it is the 5-year terms.
Well, I mean, are they each a season of General Hostility?
Yeah, but also like
Question.
this whole thing, like when Xi Jinping gets reelected, the media are going to be like, "Oh, he was reelected," which is just wrong on so many levels. Because one, he was
wasn't
never
elected.
elected, and two, this is the party Congress, which has nothing to do with him being president. It's basically whether he, through power struggle, gets to keep his position as general secretary of the Communist Party. That's a Communist Party position. Then later, once he gets that next week, or a week and a half from now, in like maybe March next year, there'll be an election with the National People's Congress where they will elect Xi Jinping probably unanimously or unanimously -1.
Yeah, that's what
Like
happened
last
last time.
Yeah.
Right?
You know, those used to actually be separate positions. The president of China and the head of the Communist
Right,
Party.
because Deng Xiaoping wasn't the president.
Yeah, it happened actually under Jiang Zemin, when the guy who was president of China tried to stage a coup against Jiang Zemin, which failed, and then Jiang became president too.
Yeah, but the interesting thing about that term president is that
It is not the same term in Chinese.
right. So it's not the same term, but because they intentionally translated it in English, it's like, oh, well, he's the counterpart to like President Biden or, you know, the Prime Minister of the UK or Australia or something like president. It's not. He's not a president. He's a dictator who runs a political party.
Yeah, you know, actually, that's a big thing that's changed from when I started the show. Like a lot of people were like, "What? China's got a president? They're a democracy, right?"
I remember
People
having
don't do
to
that
tell
anymore.
friends that like people can't vote for anything in
Yeah.
China. Yeah, because it sounds like they do have a president.
Right.
But yeah, the term in Chinese that they use for the president of China is totally different than the word that they use for presidents of other countries.
Yeah, is it closer to chairman?
No, it's not chairman. But it's
But-
just not the word for president.
But yeah, I would say over the 10 years of doing the show, the biggest thing is like how much people have changed their views about China. Like people are much better educated about it. Maybe we played a part in that.
I would think so.
I feel bad that we've actually missed a bunch of people's like super chats.
Oh, well, all right.
But-
I guess we missed some super chats. So, but thank you to everyone who has contributed in this podcast.
I would like to
We got a
answer
question.
some questions.
Yeah.
So when we did an announcement for this live, we did it last week. We asked you to leave your questions and or comments on this form, and we got more than 400 questions and comments. So I printed them out, cut them up, and put them questions and comments in these hats. Chris and Shelley have not seen them, so.
So how should we do this? Do
Well,
you
why
wanna-
don't you pick out a question
Okay.
and we'll answer it.
I see this one, Travel with Love. Thank you for the super chat. All right. Question. All right. Will the USA support India if China attacks India?
From
Oh, this is from Arjun Goyal. He's actually the guy who runs our Hindu channel, which we have a Hindu version of China Uncensored. What?
no, I just find it funny that he submitted a question.
No, but thank you, Arjun, and thanks for watching. It's probably 9.5 hours ahead, so it's very early for you or late.
Well, it's interesting because we had somebody on our China Unscripted podcast recently who made the point that actually the biggest threat right now is that there will be a war on the Indian-China border. Because while Taiwan is obviously the thing that everyone kind of talks about and knows about, U.S. troops can get to Taiwan. Japanese troops can, Australian troops. But we're talking on the India-China border, that's like in the Himalayas up in the middle of nowhere. It would take a long time for any kind of reinforcements internationally to get there if China were to stage an invasion of that part of the border.
And on top of that, it's very difficult for untrained and unacclimatized troops to fight there. And actually, later this month, the U.S. and India are doing a joint military training exercise in the Himalayas so that U.S. troops can get acclimatized to an incredibly difficult, like, I know for those of you who've ever been to high altitude, I'm talking about, 4,000, 5,000 meters. It's just like you take 2 steps and you want to collapse. It's so hard. I can't express how incredibly uncomfortable it is if your body's not acclimatized. You just can't fight in that condition. And so the Indian troops have been there for a
Yeah,
while.
so maybe the question is, could the U.S. help?
Well, the training
what could
drills
we do?
is a good sign
Yeah.
that there would be some kind of U.S. support. But
Yeah. I mean, the Indian troops are going to have to basically carry the weight. I mean, that's the reality of it.
just because of just how physically difficult it is to get any kind of international troops to that
They
region.
are good, though. Like, they're well-trained and disciplined.
Oh, the Indian soldiers for sure, yeah.
More so than the Chinese troops who are less interested in being there, let's be honest.
That's true. Do you want to pull a comment now or
I'll pull
another
a
question?
comment. Okay.
By the way, Gabe D gave us $9.99. Says thank you for doing what you do. Thank you,
Yeah,
Gabe.
thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, sorry about for everyone we missed with the the super chats. We'll keep a better eye on it now.
They went away much faster than I thought.
Oh, yeah, they disappear for us.
Yeah.
All right, this is a comment. It comes from Calvin. Started watching China Uncensored since 2014, but enjoyed the show so much that I went back and watched all the older episodes.
Oh, wow.
Looking forward to seeing more content from you and the team for years to come.
I have to say, if you've gone back and watched the really old episodes, you have a high tolerance for some, like, not great YouTube.
I stand by everything we've made.
Well, we just didn't know what we were doing a lot of it.
Well, we knew what we were talking about with China.
Yeah, but just, well, I think we still kind of are not great at YouTube in a lot of ways.
Yeah, that's probably true. Because YouTube is just the vehicle to tell people about China or America on our other channel, America Uncovered, or, you know, having deep thoughts while gaming on our new channel, Gamers Unbeaten. Check it out.
It's okay to still be learning and growing as you progress. For example, learning how to turn on the audio.
Yeah, that's embarrassing.
All right, I'll grab a question. Shelly, do you want to grab a question?
Gosh, there's so many of these. Brian Pink asks, hi, I was wondering what made you make this channel. What was your inspiration to pursue this? Will you also leave your live stream posted on YouTube so those of us can't view the live can view it later? Yes, we will do that. Thank you and congratulations. You guys rock. Yeah.
Cool, thank you. Well, yeah, the reason I created the show is because I saw the impact China was having on the United States and around the world, and people needed to know what was going on, but it was like we were saying earlier, at the time it was like, oh, I thought China was a democracy, or like, oh, the Beijing Olympics, Chinese culture is so cool.
Yeah, and 2012 was a crazy year in Chinese politics.
Yeah,
but
there was
most
the
people
Bo
weren't
Xilai.
paying attention to it at all.
Yeah, so I thought if I could make a show that was like, you know, use just a little bit of humor. I don't know if we're actually funny or interesting or engaging.
Yeah, it's funny that for like years I'd really wanted to do a Daily Show type show about China, but this is before I met you, Chris, but I was like, I just don't know how that would work. Like, I was like, I don't know if anybody could actually do it. And I think that's part of the reason our mutual friend Karen was like, Shelly, this is like up your alley, you know?
Okay, because I mean, yeah, like organ harvesting,
So
the jokes.
hilarious.
Oh, laugh riot.
I would say that we have made so many genocide jokes on our show, though. Like it's been probably more than the rest of YouTube combined.
And that's something to be proud of.
Yeah. Shelly, how would you like to look at a comment? The name is just on the...
iSpat says, found this channel from the meme about China killing the Wither in Minecraft.
Oh, hey! Yeah, I was so happy. I did. There was this last year, like China tested a hypersonic missile, and there's this photo of like this just straight beam of white light shooting up into the sky, and it looks just like in Minecraft, the video game. If you activate a beacon, it does the same thing. So I made a joke about how, hey, China killed the Wither and has the resources to make a beacon. Somebody like took that little clip and like posted it on Instagram, and it got like 1 million views or something.
That's the only thing of ours that's gone viral in a long time.
Yeah, but I was really happy to see that.
And we have had more than one person tell us that they found the channel through that Instagram clip. So.
Yeah. Did anyone find us through the Harry Potter erotic fan fiction thing?
Not that I know of.
We won't go into it, but if you haven't heard the story, just look up BuzzFeed, Chris Chappell, China Uncensored, Harry Potter fanfic. It's funny. Oh, so many things have happened.
Well,
Did you say Razura? Razura give $50. Thank you.
Thank you.
And said, how are the people of Macau reacting to all that's happening? Do they think they're immune to all that's happened in Hong Kong because they've been to the golden child in the past? Are they that naive, or have they just bought into the party line?
Well, the short of it is Macau has always been like more controlled than Hong Kong. Like it's the place where there's the casinos. The casinos are the big industry, and that involves a lot of Chinese money laundering. So they just, it was never really that much of a pushback. In fact, we interviewed an activist in Macau.
Was this 2016?
Yeah, 2016.
So yeah, and he was talking about how like a lot of the things that Hong Kong was fighting against, like fighting against having a national security type law, was already there in Macau. Like they had passed what's called Article 23, which is basically a law that would make anything that was illegal in mainland China also illegal in Hong Kong and Macau. And Hong Kongers had come out into like 500,000 people back in 2003 had come out to the streets to protest this, and they backed off.
Yeah.
And Macau, like there was just no opposition to it. Also because Macau had been very poor before the 90s when the CCP took over. And when the CCP took over and then the casinos got this huge infusion of cash and business, like their prosperity was much more tied to the CCP. Hong Kong's prosperity was much more tied to
International business.
Yeah, so it was just like a totally different scenario. I felt really bad for that Macau activist we were talking about because he was kind of just like
he said something that really stuck with me, which is that he's like, I want to be effective, but not too effective, because the concern was if he were too effective, he and everything in his movement would just be immediately shut down.
He definitely spent some time in prison after we interviewed him.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Jason Tube gave $7 Australian, says interview Jordan Peterson. Jordan, I know you're watching. Call me.
Also, Victoria Nguyen gave us a very generous $99.99, so thank you.
Yes, thank you. No question there.
You should say her last name is
Win.
Win.
Really?
Yeah.
That's how you
Sorry,
pronounce
Victoria.
It's Win.
All right.
Well, I've been pronouncing that name wrong for my whole life. Go ahead, Chris.
Okay. Fandroid asks, I like that name, Fandroid. How did Shelley feel when she first immigrated to the U.S., seeing a new economic and political reality in the so-called Western, which in this case means Europe and lands colonized by it, and the adopted part of the originally European culture? That was in parentheses, so that's why I read it like that. Countries away from most, if not all, chains of the CCP regime.
I actually do. Even though I was 3.5 when I came to America, I had been mostly raised by my grandparents because my parents had immigrated when I was very young. So my dad had he had gotten a scholarship to study in the U.S. to get his PhD. So he came and then he brought my mom over a few years later and then I came. And I did not want to stay in America. I told my grandmother that I would be back like tomorrow. Like I did not have any understanding that like I was now coming to a different country to live. And so I was very depressed and cried a lot and wanted to go back to my grandma until the first time I saw a mall. And like that was literally like I had never seen that much stuff together in one place before, like that many stores, like 2 level. It was crazy. And there was still food rationing going on in China when I was a kid, like in the 80s. Like you had to, like it wasn't a famine, there wasn't enough food, but you'd had to have ration coupons to buy everything. So it was crazy to see like all this stuff. And then I told my parents that like I was fine with staying and we could just bring grandma here.
That's a better idea.
I guess I was a little capitalist at heart.
You were just swayed by America's stuff.
Yes.
It's like the Gorbachev moment where he comes to visit and he's like, how do the grocery stores have all this stuff? Maybe our Soviet economic system isn't that efficient.
And then he was in a Pizza Hut ad. You remember that?
No?
Yeah, it's freaky. There's a Pizza Hut ad with Gorbachev.
Weird. I mean, I do remember talking to like a girl I met who was from Russia who told me she had that same exact moment of like coming as a kid and then being like, let's stay in America. But for her, it was the first time she saw a Barbie doll. So this is soft power.
Never underestimate the power of stuff.
Yeah.
Pull out a comment.
All righty. This comment comes from Alberto. I found China Uncensored on my homepage and I instantly fell in love.
Oh.
Since in Italy there isn't much bad publicity about China, I like seeing a different angle. For me, China Uncensored made my eyes open more than before. Hope y'all continue to fight the CCP.
Cool. And I like that even though he's Italian, he has that folksy American y'all.
Thank you, Alberto.
Thank you. Another question? All right, another question.
Or you can take a comment if you want.
Oh, okay.
We can pass the hat down.
I'll pass the hat, but I got this one out. Alicia says, will you guys come to Taiwan recently as the border is finally about to open? Oh, do we have another trip in us?
I want to go before the war.
Oh, God.
Ah, I love when you phrase it like that, Matt. It's just so nice. By the way, Christopher just gave a little super sticker thing. Thank you very much.
I like that it's like a little Japanese.
Yeah. Well,
Rakakuni.
I think that's the answer to that question, but we'll right.
Like that's a yes or no?
Hypothetically, yes. I'm very tired.
But
This show has really tired me out.
But like
over the
we
years.
haven't gone anywhere, and like
Since the COVID Well, actually, our last trip was to Taiwan for the election, January 2020, and we
Yeah.
were hearing like, oh,
I mean,
there's
we
this,
already knew.
there's this sickness
yeah.
coming out of China.
I remember following that pretty intently because we were traveling through the Taipei airport, and I was like, it's probably already
and we knew about
here.
SARS.
Yeah, I was like, it's probably in this airport. We flew back to America on January 15th, and I think that's when like the CCP had to finally be like, all right, it's more than just in Wuhan, you know, yeah.
When they, well, yeah. Yeah. Well, somebody else grab one.
Shelley, go with a question.
Aaron Graham asks, how long do you plan to continue China Uncensored?
Till the CCP falls.
And then we have to continue it at least a little bit longer so we can actually go to China again.
Yeah, there'll be probably an interesting transition period. But, I mean, that's why we have America Uncovered, because we can still talk about America stuff even after the CCP falls. Well, I guess the podcast would be over too. But, you know, we're starting history channels. We got a gaming channel. We're working on a channel about finding stuff that's not made in China, but I guess if the CCP falls,
It'll be less of an issue.
yeah.
I'm not going to bank on that happening super soon,
Yeah.
number one. And I think we have to, you know, do some stuff to decouple from China before that
Yeah.
happens. And also, you know, I just picture you finally making the YouTube channel of your dreams where you just sip tea and read The Romance of the Three
Oh my
Kingdoms out
God.
loud.
I think what we're saying is I'm looking forward to the day I can retire, which
Come
means
on,
to follow the
Chris.
CCP.
You know, drinking tea and reading the
No,
Three
it's good.
Kingdoms.
What I'm saying is, like, I want this battle to be fought and done, the good guys victorious. You know, like, what did Aragon do after
He
falls?
became a king and then ruled for another few hundred years.
Yeah, because he had Numenorian blood. I've been watching a lot of Lord of the Rings
Okay.
videos lately. He also had an eternal elf wife. When will I get mine?
But then she had to live on forever
Yeah.
without him. Or no, then she died.
I think she just
Voluntarily?
lived on.
No, she
forever.
died.
Did she?
Yeah. Or, yeah.
All right, so next question.
Anyway,
This-
probably the Tolkien scholars can tell us in the comments.
Yep. Oh, Patricia Whitman gave a $20 sticker. Thank you very much.
And says, you are amazing, Chris.
Oh, we are amazing.
I'm not going to answer this because we already talked about that on the show. Let me just grab a new one. Okay. This question comes from a guy named Peter. That's the name. What's the funniest thing the CCP has done?
Maybe believe that Kim Jong-un was voted people's most sexiest man alive.
Oh, that was a good one.
Yeah.
The Onion ran a story about Kim Jong-un being voted the sexiest man alive.
And then the People's Daily republished it as if it were true.
Yeah.
Because if you Stamer media have no sense of humor, like
Well, they're not allowed to.
Yeah.
they did not understand the sarcasm.
There's another one I just remembered. I'm sorry I remembered it because
Oh,
I didn't
no.
like to research this. There was one time when Chinese state-run media. This is something that apparently exists, but apparently there is a genre called execution porn,
Oh my gosh.
and they like somehow saw execution porn and thought it was like a real video of an execution in the U.S. and was like showing clips of it, like, oh, look at how horrible the human rights are in America.
But it was like a made-up thing, right? It was just acting, right?
I mean,
It wasn't a snuff film.
If you call porn acting, I guess.
Well, no. Well, I was distinguishing it from the actual thousands of executions that they do carry out in China every year.
No. This was a U.S. porn.
It was actually probably like Russians or something.
yeah, okay, so this
were,
is-
but
Anyway, you know
This
what?
is like-
I think I get what's happening.
Okay.
I realize that I'm done talking about this, and I actually should have been done before I asked my follow-up question. So would you grab
Yes.
something from the hat, please, immediately?
Well, I do think that
No,
is
but
just a
Chris-
case of like just such wanting it to be true. Do you know what I mean? Like somebody like in the People's Daily was like, "Ah, got him."
And-
Like, yeah, like
and since I had to watch some of the video, you need to be a special kind of idiot not to realize what was going on. Let me tell you.
Okay.
Let me tell you.
Either that or they're like, executions are really weird in the West. I mean,
Yeah.
I have had, because, the propaganda that they show to Chinese people is so much about how terrible and dangerous it is in America. I've had people multiple times from China just asking me, like, are you worried? Have you ever been in a shooting situation? Because they're just like, everybody gets shot in America all the time. And then they kind of use anything like the supposedly anti-Asian violence that was going on during COVID. And then they take that and they pump it up and they broadcast it into China. So to make it seem like the rest of the world is super scary and that
just stay safe in China.
Yeah, it's best in China. It's very North Korean too.
Yeah.
But
I like how your follow-up question to the execution porn was very thoughtful and added a lot. And Matt,
he was just
question.
confused.
Well, because I actually thought it was the term food porn?
Oh, you thought it was an actual porn.
Yeah, I didn't think it was pornographic. I thought it was just making executions look spectacular or something.
That's almost as bad as when I read Harry Potter erotic fan fiction.
Oh,
yeah.
Of course, I still don't know how you did that.
This is good because now
look at how glamorous these executions
I'm feeling
are.
that deep sense of embarrassment and personal shame. Chris, let's move on.
Sure, I just want to thank some people. Taylor McCafferty donated 20. Says Matt once made a comment about History Unearthed. Well, that is the show we are working on. So yeah, stay tuned for that. We should have a pilot fairly soon. Winman Yip sent $5. Says congratulations, basically. Great. Thank you guys.
Sergeant Joe
Well, I might be missing things then.
gave $50 and asked, with the recent drought in China, war in Ukraine, mobilization in Russia, as one of the top producers of the week, do they have enough reserves for wintertime? Last year they bought a lot of grain, but where can they buy it now?
Well, China is the biggest buyer of grain in the world.
About them running out of.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, from a certain perspective, the biggest problem with food scarcity is not that there isn't enough produced in the world. It's that there aren't good distribution mechanisms and also prices can fluctuate. And so, theoretically, there is enough food in the world. It's just a matter of whether China can get countries to sell it to them and then whether it can be distributed. Although distributed is kind of not always the right word because in free markets, things aren't distributed. They're bought and sold just at higher prices when there's less. In China, there could be some government distribution, but they haven't really done a lot of food distribution in decades, as far as I know. So I think what people in China will see is even higher prices for food, and the price of pork has already gone up 20-30% since a year ago.
They have a big problem with food inflation.
Yeah. China measures consumer price index inflation differently than America. They leave out certain categories to make it seem like it's low, they don't include food. Stupid way to do it, but it's also the propaganda. So it looks on the surface, if you look at the numbers, like it's low inflation, but actually food and a few other things that people really need, the prices have gone way up. And so what that means is that people are just going to have less food or they're going to have not as good quality food. But I don't think China's going to see any kind of starvation level thing happening this winter.
Right. Hey, this is going to be my first comment. Gray Neko says, found China Uncensored completely by accident about a year or so ago. Subscribed immediately. It means a lot that people like y'all with the talent, means, and sheer balls, sorry, Shelley, to do so are speaking out about the CCP. You're doing God's work. Please keep fighting. Thank you. We definitely will.
I have balls on the inside.
The biggest balls on the inside
Shelley?
of anyone I've met.
Yeah. BB's Little World asks, does watermelon milk taste good? Is there pineapple milk? Watermelon milk tastes amazing.
Yes.
It is my
Taiwan
favorite.
7-Eleven's best thing in the world.
Yeah, exactly.
We must defend Taiwan 7-Elevens.
Yeah. We found out that it's seasonal, though. So we couldn't get any in January 2020 when we were there, which makes me very sad. They do have papaya milk year-round. I never saw any pineapple milk.
I feel like there must. It's so obvious.
Really?
Well,
Yeah, pineapple milk. Why not? Like if you have
so
watermelon
sour.
milk.
well,
can make
how
it
about
work.
this? Let's crowdsource that answer. If you're watching from Taiwan, is there pineapple milk? Let us know in the chat comments.
Dances with Fishes gave $19.99. Thank you very much.
I like that name.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, and Shannon Morningstar gave $20 and asked if we think the CCP is embarrassed by Xi and Pooh comparisons. I think Xi himself does not like it, which is why anytime people make those comparisons, it gets banned. But just so people know, Winnie the Pooh is not banned in China. You can still get like Winnie the Pooh dolls at the Shanghai Disneyland.
Yeah.
It's just comparisons with Xi
Xi
and
Jinping
Winnie
specifically.
the Pooh. Yeah. There was also somebody who compared Xi Jinping to one of the villains in Biker Mice from Mars.
Didn't that guy get arrested?
He got arrested. He like did a tweet about that in the U.S. and went back to China.
Yeah.
Got jail time.
Yeah. He's not the only Twitter user who's been arrested in China.
Yeah, because it turned out Twitter was working with China and giving all kinds of information to China's authorities.
Twitter didn't know what kind of information they were giving. As long as they stuck their fingers in their ears and went la 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 really
and,
loud.
you know, maybe hired a Chinese spy.
They
or
can
two.
and opened a couple of sales offices to China. They can just do that with a free conscience because they don't know what they're doing.
Hey, Elon might be buying it.
That doesn't. Who knows what that would
Who
actually
knows?
mean?
Elon, I know you're watching. Give me a call. We'll get you on the show. Yeah?
General Underpants
Ooh.
sent $2 and asked, "Is it better to send support on locals,
As compared to what?
YouTube or Patreon?"
Whatever's more convenient for you, really.
Yeah, you just get different things on locals than on Patreon.
Yeah.
So
Just check out the Patreon page or the locals page and see what jives with you. Matt, I saw you.
we are not afraid of being censored on locals. That's one thing versus Patreon. So, like, I have, like, we're not worried that like something we would do or say would get taken down. And if you like your videos ad-free, more ad-free than they are on YouTube, we post all of our videos up to locals. Yeah.
You got both hats. Go ahead.
This is the same person. So. Lepanto says he found China Uncensored searching news about Trump's China policy. I watch because it's so hilarious. The CCP takes itself so seriously. Humor can bring it down.
Authoritarian regimes love being laughed at. That's a big reason why we do use humor on the show. Besides making it a little, hopefully, more entertaining for people watching, authoritarian regimes, they just take themselves very seriously.
Eret asks, what do you think would happen if the Kuomintang won the Chinese Civil War?
Like,
So that would have been, the Civil War went from after World War II, 1945, and ended in 1949, and the communists took over all of China except for the island of Taiwan, which the Kuomintang, or the Nationalist Party, had fled to or consolidated to. I would say that while it's impossible to know what would have happened historically, I would say the most likely thing is that if you look at the models of what happened in Taiwan or in South Korea or Singapore to some degree, there's this basically, what Taiwan had under the Kuomintang was about 40 years of martial law, kind of military rule, which was authoritarian. Not as brutal as the Communist Party, but not great. And then
there were still like what they called the White Terror, which is political prisoners.
I'm not defending at all what happened under the Kuomintang, but 40 years later, there was enough pressure that there was a push for real meaningful democracy, and that happened. And the reason I bring up South Korea is that South Korea also had a kind of martial law after the Korean War, which has become much more of a democracy now, and is essentially considered a democracy.
The wild card in all of that is it would have made the Cold War very different if the USSR did not have China as another major communist superpower.
Right.
Kind of right there.
And also interestingly, because the United Nations, the National Security Council, arguably the most powerful part of the UN, its permanent members include Russia, China, the U.S., UK, and France, right? And because these were like, you know, the winners of the World War II. But because Russia and China were both communist, it kind of made them more willing to come to the table. I think if China were a democracy, it would have made the Soviet Union less interested in even being involved, and it could have changed the whole dynamics. Could have been very positive.
Well, I mean,
for the
China
UN. It could have
wasn't.
been negative though.
China wasn't part of the UN though until the late 70s
That's true.
because it was held. The seat was held by the ROC, Taiwan.
That's
Yeah.
true. So scratch that.
Do you want to take a question?
Sure. Question from Chris. What are the biggest, most pressing problems with China out of the many you've addressed on your show? What solutions should the U.S. and the West pursue to address those most pressing problems? Well, I think one thing that's kind of been on my mind lately, based on the China Unscripted podcast we just did with Chris Miller, who wrote a fantastic book called Chip War, is, you know, the entire modern world is dependent on semiconductors, the microchips that make everything run. Taiwan, the one company, the TSMC, I'm awful with letters, they make like a third of the world's semiconductors. If that gets shut down because of a war.
They don't just make a third of the world's semiconductors, they make like 90% of processors, like high-level processors.
The super high-end ones,
Yes.
like you need for like your iPhone, that sort of thing.
Yeah, and so if that got knocked out, like there's just so many things that like can't be replaced. It would devastate modern living, and so you would think like, oh, you know, the Chinese Communist Party wouldn't. They'd be shooting themselves in the foot as well by that. In addition to all the sanctions they would get from U.S., like cutting them off from a lot of the high-tech stuff they need from the U.S. But you know, our top party leadership getting the right information? Are they just being told by yes men, oh yeah, we can do a war and there'll be no consequences? And so we could find ourselves, like a war for Taiwan could just blow up the modern world, which is so disappointing because at least in the Cold War you got the idea of like, oh yeah, we could be nuked to the Stone Age. It's kind of sexy, right? But now it's like, oh, you'd be supply chained to the Stone Age. It's hard to
I
understand.
disagree with the word sexy to
totally would take being supply chain to the Stone Age over being nuked.
Really?
Yeah.
You never played Fallout.
No.
Shelley, you want to grab a question?
Jacob Carter gave $15 and said, been watching you for a long time. Oh no, did I lose his?
Yeah, so, sorry guys, we are trying to do our best to keep up with all of this.
Okay. I think around 2014, been a huge part of my journey. Thank you guys for being around. Love and praying for all of you. Thank you, Jacob.
You know what? We need to get you to say the Dirty Reds.
Nope.
Nope. We'll get her one of these days.
Oh, comment from Joe Conyer. Happy anniversary. More camera time for Matt and Shelley, please.
I agree with that.
Do you?
Actually, not really.
There was a brief period where I was visiting my parents, and I couldn't host for a while this year. And when I came back, you were like, "Oh my God, I don't want to."
Thank God you're back,
It's so hard. It is actually really hard doing it. It's so much energy to host. Actually, it's like your whole day like revolves around, you know, a half an hour or an hour of hosting.
I don't know if your whole day does, but
Oh, for me, it does. I wake up and I just sit in intense meditation, channeling my chi into the Dantian to create the platform I need to project. And yeah, you know.
All right. This comment comes from girlfriend.
Oh, hi.
I don't regret It also says, I don't know what those other characters are. The comment is, I don't regret watching that old video by Chris on Japanese wood carpentry. Stayed for the news and the research that goes into it.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I remember that. Because before the show, I was working as a writer on a show about traditional Chinese culture that just never went anywhere. And I put some of those videos up on the China Uncensored channel years ago. There was one about wood carving.
Yeah, it was like
Kung
Asian
Fu,
stuff, right? Because there was it was Japanese carpentry. It wasn't Chinese.
and the Japanese tea at one point, too.
Yeah, and there was one about martial arts.
Yeah.
And one about paper making. There were 5, I think.
Yeah.
You didn't put all of them up, though.
I don't think so. Some of them
I think
might not have been very good.
think
But the ones I did put up were.
the martial arts one. I definitely remember watching the Japanese carpentry one. It was really
Yeah, that was super duper cool.
I was like, wow, that's an amazing table. Maybe someday I'll be able to afford that.
No.
No.
No, they're stupidly expensive.
You want to, but they're beautiful, though. You want to grab a comment, question?
I'd like comments for a change. But Chris Nemec says, which story that you covered made you want to say this stupidity hurts my brain the most? Well, since it's top of mind, the execution porn. That was a rough one for me. Almost as bad as when you had to look at the Hunter Biden laptop.
Oh, gosh. Those. Oh, I don't even want to remember that.
All right, reading the comment. Don't think about it.
Oh no. Do we need to read a different comment?
Jimmy Deezy Nuts.
You mean?
It's probably T's nuts.
Oh,
Yes.
Jimmy D's Nuts. About a year or two ago, saw my brother watching one of your vids and was wondering what he was watching. Since then, I've subscribed to China Uncensored, Unscripted, and America Uncovered. Before I saw your videos, I had no clue of the evil that was the CCP. Kind of mind-blowing, have no clue about such a huge problem looming overhead that was the CCP. Greetings from Croatia.
Croatia.
They have the D's Nuts saying in Croatia. The world is connected, you guys. This is so encouraging.
Okay.
And remember, you have the biggest balls inside of you. If people are just tuning in now and miss that.
Really weird. Okay. Hemulonisis? I'm probably not pronouncing that right at all. I remember a long time ago I found your channel and I thought, who and why would anyone make a YouTube channel that singles out one particular country and just makes negative contents on it? And I dismissed it as just racist. That was before the pandemic when I had a rosy view on China, just like the type they want you to have of them. I don't remember what exactly it was that changed my view. It was not the pandemic. But then I found your channel again and started to watch your videos and understand the view I had on China was not the correct one. I watch your channel to keep up to date on what's happening in China since they have such a huge influence on what happens in the world. Thank you.
That's nice. And just if anyone considers the content, what we're doing racist, just keep in mind Shelley's working on these scripts too. So
Which can only mean one thing.
blame her for the racism.
I was going to say that Shelley's racist.
No, I'm just a traitor.
Oh yeah, you do get called that,
Yeah.
or you
a
have
race
been.
traitor.
A race traitor. Yes, that's the part. I'm a race traitor.
All right. This comment comes from Ark. I discovered your channel when I watched one of your videos on Chinese food quality. Oh, thank you.
All right, I'll grab a question. Captain Snake Eye asks, if the CCP collapses and the ROC takes over, do you think we would see an independent Xinjiang and Tibet, maybe even an independent Manchuria? What are your thoughts on this?
We're not going to see an independent Manchuria because the Manchus are basically gone. Like, there's not really...
They live on in the Hong Kong kung fu movies of the 70s.
I mean, the price they paid for conquering all of China and ruling for hundreds of years is that they became so sinicized that nobody even speaks or writes
They gave up
Manchurian
their own
anymore.
writing and language to adopt the Han Chinese.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know that the ROC would take over China.
Yeah, that's the big question. It really doesn't. Right now, it doesn't seem like the people of Taiwan are too interested in like the old idea of like, let's take back mainland China. So that's the big question. That's unknown for this question. But I think someday, if the CCP falls, it is possible that the autonomous regions of China could gain some kind of
Actual autonomy?
actual autonomy.
Yeah. It is hard to say, though, because the CCP has also done this whole like drive to move Han Chinese people into Tibet and into Xinjiang. So it's not clear that, you know, the people, the Uyghurs or the Tibetans would be able to.
Yeah, they're actively trying to breed these ethnicities out of existence. That's like a lot of what the CCP is doing in Xinjiang. So yeah, it depends on when the CCP falls, I guess. Hopefully sooner than later.
I'll take a comment from Charlie. Believe it or not, I found the channel looking through videos recommended by YouTube. Easy to keep up with current events, and the humor reminds me of when The Daily Show was good.
Hey,
Oh,
that's awesome. That's awesome. Oh, Josh gave $4.
Tell your Jon Stewart story.
Oh, that's right. I actually met Jon Stewart. I think he was still hosting The Daily Show at this point. Yeah, I met him randomly in a movie theater in New York, and I was with a friend watching a movie, and yeah, there was a little crowd around him, people talking. I had started China Uncensored at this point, and my friend was like, "Oh, you should go talk to him." I'm like, "Oh, no," but he encouraged me to do it, and I went up to him, and yeah, he was a really lovely guy. He like took the time to have a brief conversation with me. I mentioned that I was doing the China Uncensored. He was like, "Oh, that's something like, oh, that's a good idea. China's important," or something like that. And yeah, it was just very nice, and like he was giving all the people who were coming up to him like the time of day. It was really nice, and so I thought if anyone ever came up to me and wanted to talk to me, I would do the same. Yeah. Yeah, thanks you. I forgot about that memory. There's a lot that's happened over the years that I've forgotten.
Yeah, I just remember you talking about how he told you that China Uncensored sounded like a good idea.
Yeah. Hey, China Uncensored, it's got the Jon Stewart seal of approval. Trevor Noah never said that to me.
I feel like we answered that question.
Yeah, some of them we've already talked about.
Oh, okay.
I mean, there's so many questions. It's not
We've been
possible.
so loquacious.
That's right.
Russ asks, if the Chinese hate us so much, why are they so eager to come here? I'm not sure the Chinese hate us so much.
Why do you hate me?
More like, why do you hate me?
Matt, we both know
It's my puns.
This team gets along great. It's 10 years, hey. Well, not 10 years for you, Matt. But.
No.
And also not 10 years for me.
Yeah.
But 7.5 full-time years.
Seriously, I do have to say, I remember working in high school. They always make you do group projects, and I always hated working on a project with other people. But these guys, it's been amazing. It's like nothing else. Like I said at the beginning, you two are like brothers to me.
Thanks, Chris.
It's the China Uncensored family.
Yeah.
I think Chinese people want to come to America because it's still a land of opportunity. Like it has so much more than China, and people are still looking for a safe place to put their money, a safe place for their kids to go to school. Like a lot of people want more freedom. There was that crazy story in CNN, remember, about the Chinese guy who basically wanted to get out of China so badly that he got into a language school in Colombia or something like that, flew to Colombia and then took the migrant route through South America, Central America, Mexico, and came in at the southern border.
Yeah, that was incredible. And also, so many of the Chinese people who try to immigrate here, they tend to be from the upper crust of Chinese society. They have money. They're usually well connected. I mean, keep in mind, like Xi Jinping's anti-corruption campaign has purged, I think it's up to 5 million people. Like, even if you're from the upper crust of Chinese society, you know you're not safe in China, so.
Yeah, I mean, for all the CCP talks about stability, it's like they pitch their authoritarian model as, oh, well, we bring stability. And it is true that there's a lot less street-level crime and a certain type of chaos in China compared to other countries, including parts of the US. But there's a tremendous amount of instability as well, which they don't want to discuss, which is you can have money or connections, and you're still not safe from just being arbitrarily detained for something you think even a family member says.
Or for being in an IKEA when somebody gets like the
COVID alarm goes off.
Yeah, and then like everybody in IKEA is locked down.
Right. So like you're not safe from government policy, and you're not safe from the instability in the markets, for example, the stock market or the real estate market that come with being in like a totally screwed up system. So, but I think the crux of it is like, in America, there might be more street violence. I don't actually know if that's true, but it might seem that way. But you are in America safe from the U.S. government. And in China, you're never safe from the Chinese government or the Chinese Communist Party, and you're always at their whim. And people in China understand this. And so, like, they're not coming because they think, like, oh, well, I'm less likely to be shot in America or something. Like, that's not the consideration. It's they feel safer knowing that the government is not going to go after them here.
Would that be a lesson? Communism? Not good. Did Holly hold up a note for us?
That's saying it's been an hour and a half since we started our podcast.
Yes, she probably wants to go home.
It is
listening
rather
to
late.
us.
So I think we should wrap it up within the next 7 hours, you think?
Oh, we can go all night.
Yeah.
How many 10-year
I'm already
anniversaries?
Wrap it up by sunrise.
There we go.
Yeah, this is, how many times can we have a 10-year anniversary? We'll never have one again. Maybe we'll have a 20-year. You got something?
Lord Zarfax gave $50 and says, I forget how it is that I found you all. It was a TV interview. I have been following from then on. Thank you. I think we just dropped a bunch of people for some reason. Sometimes the chat goes like from 1,000 to like suddenly 200 and then goes back up. Like
That's probably however YouTube does it. The nice thing though is when this is just up on YouTube, the live chat will still be there as well.
Yeah, a bunch of people. It looks like we somehow like the video went down for a bunch of people, but it's coming back up.
Oh, okay. Oh, well.
Yep, the stream keeps dropping.
I'll grab one. I actually am running out of steam too. We've been working all day, and then we also did this, but this has been so nice. I remember like a couple weeks ago, you're like, guys, remember this is our 10-year anniversary?
Oh yeah.
Like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
We should do something. Let's see. Lorenzo Ruffo. What is the most time spent on a project or episode over the past 10 years? Which episode is the team most proud of? I think that probably is the South China Sea episode where we spent 3 days on a boat.
For one episode.
For one episode. And that was the most work too. It was a lot of work. And yeah, please watch that episode because I don't think it did that great. Despite all that effort.
All right, I'm going to read one more here. This comment is from Brooke. Congratulations on 10 years to the whole team. Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't recall exactly how I happened upon China Uncensored. I saw some of your coverage of Hong Kong pro-democracy demonstrators and how the Hong Kong police had changed from leading the world in managing large peaceful demonstrations, that would have been 2014, to keep participants, onlookers, and police safe and orderly, and became uniformed thugs who also apparently utilize gang thugs to start violence or to perpetuate violence on demonstrators. That is absolutely right, Brooke. I've enjoyed China Uncensored's informative and somewhat humorous style ever since. Somewhat humorous. I think that's the best compliment that certainly I've ever had.
some people are saying the stream is a little laggy suddenly. I blame the CCP. Let us know if it continues to be an issue. But, yeah.
We are on Odyssey, by the way, not the live stream.
That's true. That's
But
true.
we do post all of our episodes on Odyssey.
Odyssey and also Rumble, which owns Odyssey.
That's right. But, yeah, I don't know. Maybe we should start winding this down. Do we have any final thoughts? Like, what does it mean that we've done this 10 years? Fighting the fight. I really do wonder how much longer the CCP has.
Oh, I'm not going to do predictions.
Yeah. Shelley, give a prediction.
No.
About anything.
You're going to go to sleep tonight?
Wrong. Yeah, it's been an absolutely incredible journey. I don't have the words to express actual emotions.
Actual emotions.
But yeah, this is just, everything has been like, everything with you guys has been so amazing. Like, we really are a family. All the interactions with fans just on each video, or like when I meet people on the streets, and just, it's been absolutely incredible. What, Shelley, you chuckled.
I'm just watching the screams skip really badly, so that like when you're like this, suddenly it'd be like this, and then you're like this again.
Because I moved too.
Chris was saying all these beautiful things, and you're just like looking at your phone the whole time.
Well, I'm just trying to see if it's people are actually hearing all of these beautiful things, because if it's skipping all the time, nobody could hear your moving speech about how much you appreciate everything.
Someday I'll write my memoirs. Bestseller. So, thanks for watching 10 years of China Uncensored. We'll be here tomorrow for 10 years and 1 day. That wasn't like an incredible moving thing, was it, that I just said?
No.
That's how I ended it. That's how I ended. You only have one 10-year anniversary and I messed it up.
You know, I think that we can only look forward to better things ahead. Like, I never really thought about when we would get to 1 million viewers, and now or subscribers, and now we're almost at 2 million.
Yeah.
And you know, like being able to travel so many places, meet so many people, it's been amazing. And I think even though we're starting all these new channels, like this is still the OG.
The heart and soul.
Yeah. So we look forward to uncensoring China for many years to come.
Yeah. So keep watching. keep joining us for this wild ride. Yeah, this has been amazing. Thank you for joining us. You know who I am, but I'm Chris Chappell.
I'm Shelley John.
And I'm Matt Gnezda.
We'll see you soon.